Hey everyone, in this video we're building a cafe by the river in The Sims 1. The lot I'm building on is 10 Sim Lane, which obviously is originally a residential lot, so I've rezoned it as a community lot. I really wanted to build here because along with 8 Sim Lane, I'd say it's probably the only lot that actually has water access naturally at the back of the lot. Obviously, I could have picked just any lot in the neighborhood and placed water at the back of the lot and said, oh, it's a river. But I really like the idea that when looking at the neighborhood screen, it's clear that the lot is actually facing the water. So even though you can't see the other lots around you, you can't see the rest of the neighborhood around you while you're on the lot, it's still possible to kind of imagine that the Sims themselves can actually see the real river and can enjoy visiting the lot specifically for that reason. I also like the fact that although the lot is flat, there is a little bit of a slope towards the bottom of the lot going down to the water, which I think feels just more realistic somehow to me, rather than just a lake or a body of water manually placed onto a completely flat lot. So then when I was thinking about the cafe and how I wanted it to be, I kind of originally imagined maybe it would be very close to the water, maybe even right next to it, and that Sims could maybe order their coffee and see the water very close up. But then I had this idea that I wanted to use the lot for a little bit more than just a cafe, and the part of the lot right near the water, I wanted to have a fishing pier and almost a little outdoor gathering area. It's not quite a camping area, but I wanted to have that space near the water kind of for different activities. So I decided to place the actual main building for the cafe quite up close near to the road. And I wanted to go for a kind of old town New Orleans look, at least in terms of doors and windows, and then also in terms of furniture, like the coffee bar itself, and the pastry counter, and the tables and chairs. I almost wanted it to be like a kind of cozy but spacious space at the same time. I didn't necessarily use all of the furnishings and wall coverings that go with the old town New Orleans look. It was just more the general sort of vibe I was going for. Then aside from the main cafe area where you can get coffee and pastries, there's also downstairs toilets, and then there's a staircase leading upstairs where I decided to have more like a bar area. So I do imagine this establishment would maybe be open in the evenings, and maybe Sims come here to have a drink after work. So I put a dartboard and also a jukebox upstairs, as well as more toilets. And then there's a little balcony area as well, so Sims can go out there and get a bit of fresh air. Or it could double as a smoking area too. Then behind the main building of the cafe, I wanted to have just kind of a terrace area. I wanted to have plenty of outdoor seating. So initially I thought it would just be a terrace, but I had this idea of maybe having some kind of an upstairs on the terrace and having part of it covered over, but I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to do that. When I placed columns around the terrace, it makes it possible to place floor tiles in certain areas on the floor above, but not everywhere. So I didn't know if I wanted to place enough columns to cover the entire ceiling, as it were, or if I wanted to cover the entire ceiling with the pillars in place and then remove the pillars. I kind of decided to have these two open spaces above the terrace, so it kind of looks like there's just two big holes in the ceiling, but I really like the idea that the sun could come through those holes, and then anyone who's sitting on the terrace will kind of be able to get a little bit of sun on their faces without sitting completely outside in the sun. And I positioned the tables on the terrace to not be directly under the holes in the ceiling effectively. So I did kind of think, if it ever rained, you wouldn't get rain coming straight onto your table if you were just sitting outside and suddenly the weather changed. But part of the terrace might get wet, but hopefully it wouldn't be where you were sitting. Then I put a spiral staircase on one side, which is kind of leading up to a little rooftop garden. I really like the idea of having plants or maybe like ferns or something growing off the roof that could maybe be hanging down over the sides of the terrace. So it really feels like you're surrounded by plants. Almost like a cafe in like a garden center or something like that, where there would be plants for sale, but you don't necessarily have to buy any. You can just go there and sit and order a tea or coffee or something to eat and just kind of enjoy being around lots of plants, and it's kind of quite relaxing. But obviously none of the plants that I placed are actually for sale. There's no real way to sell those, but I still really like the idea of this rooftop garden. I kind of wished it was actually possible to place real plants that are growing out of the ground, like shrubs and bushes, on a second story, or even trees or hedges. But I had to make do with more like the house plants that you can get in buy mode, that you can just place anywhere. And these actually do live and die. Like, you have to water them and care for them. So I do definitely feel like they're living plants. They're not just plastic plants purely for decoration. They are living plants that will need care. So I do feel it's still like a lively garden space, just about. I also put a bench and a checker set up on the roof, so there's actually an activity for Sims to do up there. It could even be a good place to bring a date. Like, it almost reminds me of Troy and Gabriella up on the roof singing to each other. I think that could be quite romantic. Then down at the riverside, there is, of course, the fishing pier, and also a picnic bench and a grill and a few recliners. There's also a rental shack Zach, so Sims can rent fishing equipment to use at the fishing pier, and there's a pond to sail boats as well. I feel like that's always a good activity to do on a date as well. So I think that's everything I wanted to say about this lot. You can download it from the link in the description if you want to add it to your game. Do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet, and I will see you in the next one.